What's up, everybody? Welcome to Gojo with Mike Golick Jr. That is me. With me, as always, a man who's getting ready for a move, Brandon Newman. Brandon, what's going on, man? How's the moving process getting ready to go?
Tiring as shit, Miguel. Tiring as shit. But it's interesting. It's interesting. It's nice having time with my family right now. It's like focusing on our things and moving our things. It's kind of like a shift in focus. What?
Are you doing the nostalgia trip where you're packing up a bunch of things that were a part of, your kid's young life and you guys building your family and your home there?
Yeah, it's our first home together as a married couple. It's our first home for our child, the second child. Yesterday we had a going away party for Carter and his preschool class where everyone got little gift baskets and everyone had cupcakes.
What did you put in the gift baskets? I feel like this is like little kid Valentine's Day where everyone's got to get the same thing so no one's feeling gets hurt.
Everyone got specialty cards. Michelle did a very good job. And Mickey Mouse socks and all these type of things. All of it is.
You guys had socks in the swag bag? Damn.
Yes, socks in the swag bag. All of it, honestly, is all. What's a negative word for like training someone to do something that they don't? That's against their will.
Oh, I'm not really sure why. You think that was the intent here?
Oh, well, we're moving to Florida, and Carter's third birthday is in March, and we're going to Disney World. So I just feel like this is all. What is it called? Ooh, people are gonna scream at the podcast.
Yep. That's all it is. If you think of it, just at Gojo Show, tweet it to us as you're screaming it in your car or while you're at the gym.
But this last thing, Mike, this is a huge family moment for me this weekend, and it was just like so crazy. I was like, I have to mention this on the podcast, little dad corner. Amongst packing and families around, because my mom is living in this house because she's going to rent it out once we leave, X, Y, and Z. Anyways, I'm playing with Carter. Everyone's around the living room, and I misjudge how far he is from the ground, right? And he's holding a little basketball, and I drop him. I drop him like maybe, let's call it 8 inches, right?
All right, so like not a dire height, but not insignificant.
Not insignificant. Everyone's surprised by the bump, right? My 2-year-old son looks up at me and says, "You fumbled." Oh my gosh, Mike. The whole room died laughing. It was just like such a proud dad moment, but outside of dropping my son.
Man, he knows ball security is job security at this young of an age.
Bro, like him holding a ball in his hand was like crazy, looking at him, like laughing. He was like, "You fumbled." Like it was like, and he's the ball. Like I couldn't get over it.
Man, he knows you carry the hopes and dreams of the entire organization every single time you got the ball in your hands, man. That's good. That is sufficient daddying by you. That is sufficient daddying.
And he'd be very disappointed in DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah. Oh my God. DeAndre Hopkins has to be the bane of high school football coaches everywhere who are trying to get their kids to not hold it like a loaf of bread. You don't have gigantic hands like that man. So if you can't hoover that thing off the ground or out of the air the way he can, don't be doing that shit there. What you should be doing is downloading, subscribing, rating, and reviewing this podcast wherever you get it, leaving us a 5-star rating and a review, and checking us out on the DraftKings YouTube channel as well. We have a fun show for you guys today. So this is coming out Tuesday. You've got the World Cup, Men's World Cup semifinals matches coming up. Argentina and Croatia, France and Morocco. And to help us not only get ready for that, but to also take the state of the U.S. men's national team coming off their World Cup trip, Ashlyn Harris and Krieger are going to join us here. They are the co-host of the Most Important Thing podcast through DraftKings. They are 2 former World Cup champions with the U.S. women's national team. And so a lot of cool insight on getting to this stage in a World Cup and what comes with that. the psychology of penalty kicks. We all geek out over Mbappe and how great he is, and they kind of take us into what they think is next for the men's national team coming off of this venture. So really cool, ton of fun to sit with them. They are awesome. And Brandon, as I tell them on the podcast when I was getting ready to talk to them, they sit around and do their podcast in their house together, and they sip champagne or they sip fun drinks. They really do like class up the joint a lot more than we do.
Yeah, Mike, is there something about a clean camera cut? And also, I mean, their fits are way better than ours.
Well, and I mean, like, as close as you and I are, they're married. So there's that extra level there that it's just going to be hard for us to compete with.
Right, of course, Mike. But I was impressed with you during this interview. I know we're not doing this. You're going to throw to it. But the way you use soccer jargon, I was sitting in my producer chair and I was like, look at it. Do your thing, 21. Do your thing.
See, man, listen, we gave everyone the rundown when we were talking about soccer with Charlotte Wilder on a prior podcast leading into the World Cup. You just got to know a few of the right words here and there, and that's all I needed to get it in the hands of the experts. I just had to get them the rock. I'm like Brock Purdy in this thing. I know I got way better teammates in here, and so I just got to get the ball to them. And so you're going to listen to me, just get the ball to Ashlyn and Allie and watch them cook. And that is how this offense is going to operate the best. So plenty of soccer talk coming up here. Very much looking forward to that. But Brandon, before we do that, we have to get to top 5, bottom 5 in the NFL. Yep. But I do have to ask you a question about one thing that I saw yesterday in the category of disrespect. What did you find more disrespectful? And you can tell me if you didn't see either of these things. First off, did you see Skip Bayless and Uncle Shannon's back and forth over Shannon Sharp feeling disrespected based on what Skip said to try and gas him up talking about Tom Brady?
I did see it, Mike. I did see it. And as someone who worked on that show intimately, it was tough to see. It was tough to see mom and dad fight.
It was tough to see because Shannon was like, unless he's the greatest actor of all time, that looked like a man who was actually pissed off at what was going on. Because Skip was basically trying to poo-poo this man's Hall of Fame career because he stopped playing at an earlier age, playing that violent position than Tom Brady. But Brandon, you know as someone who worked on that, and I know as someone that's watched this for a long time, it's a work. Skip Bayless is doing that to intentionally piss him off. He even made the fart noise in the middle where he talked about, well, I wasn't comparing you to Baker Mayfield, and then made the fart noise. And that should have been the tell for everybody that this man is out here trying to get under Shannon's skin, trying to make television here, but he actually hit on something that Shannon was not going to let slide, and I don't blame him. I wouldn't have let that shit slide either if I was Shannon Sharp and I had his resume and his accolades.
No, Mike, the thing was, obviously Skip knows that he has to stay convicted about his opinion, and backing off of it means bad ratings, right? So he ends up slipping and falling into these things where he's just like trying to drive his point home. And Shannon's like, nah, dog, you don't hear me? We do this on Christmas Day. I'm here with you every day. We are partners. Like we hold this station on our backs and we talk, we debate because we know sports, and I respect you and you should respect me because I'm a fucking Hall of Famer. And you're going to try to, like, I felt for Shannon in that moment, and he's not, and he is a great actor, Mike. Shout out to Club Shay Shay and CJ Deere producing that podcast over there. They're trying to do something before do something. But Mike, Shannon was hurt.
He was.
Shannon was hurt by his brother Skip, and it's going to take some time to recover from that.
So what is more disrespectful? Skip Bayless poo-pooing Shannon's career on the national stage in front of his brother to make a point about Tom Brady, who Skip Bayless loves so much, or Giannis Antetokounmpo appearing on Serge Ibaka's show, How Hungry Are You? So Serge Ibaka had Drew Holiday on there and was feeding him some sort of strange beverage concoction. And he got Giannis called up on the phone. In part of his sit down, they called Giannis, they FaceTimed him in and woke him up from a nap. And when Giannis realized that it was Ibaka calling, he went and he said this to him. He said, "You're not a chef. You're not an artist. You're a role player and a rebounder and a screen setter. That's what you are. Bye." And again, I know they have a relationship, and I know they're close. But Brandon, the look on Serge Ibaka's face when he said that was a man who heard a truth way that he knows deep down in places he doesn't talk about at parties. He knows are kind of true, but he did not want to hear, especially not on his show while he is wearing a little chef's hat.
You are not a chef. You are a screen setter.
You are not a chef. You are not an artist. You are a role player, a rebounder, a screen setter. That's what you are. Bye.
Honestly, I have to say that's probably more disrespectful because you got to have the Giannis accent to it as well. And thinking about Serge Ibaka just taking that on the chin, I feel bad for him. I really do, especially for somebody who's a Finals MVP and had a 50 burger in his last game. Like he has to take heed to those words.
Well, and listen, they are close. They are teammates since Serge Ibaka's come over. Giannis has been on the show, and I'm sure Giannis thinks he's a funny guy. But this was one of those things that maybe the intention and the execution got a little bit lost because again, the look on Serge Ibaka's face did not scream man who was happy to hear what just got said.
Okay, yeah, I think Giannis is going to stop there because if he tells the truth to Bobby Portis, like I want to be there to see that.
Please God, turn on every camera. Every camera. I don't want to have it be like found footage like the Draymond Green punch tapes. I want this in the Fox 4K cameras. I want to see this. I want to see this in video game 4K. Oh my God.
I did not see that though.
At Gojo Show on Twitter, which is more disrespectful. I've got it at Mike Golick Jr. on my Twitter account if you want to check out the video there. But Brandon, enough disrespect. It's time to celebrate some folks because it is Tuesday. We have week 14 in the NFL coming past, so we got to do top 5, bottom 5 from the weekend that was. I have the top 5 this week. Top 5 anything. Top 5 players, top 5 actions, top 5 finger paint drawings done by a group of adult men who have to play on a football team in the NFL. That's the only caveat. And you have the bottom 5, Brandon. So why don't you start us off? We alternate and go back and forth for anyone who is doing this for their first podcast. So what do you got?
All right. Allow you to filibuster while I find my bottom 5. Bottom 5, Mike. Tom Brady losing to Brock Purdy. I know it's not the 1-1, Mike. I know it's not the 1-1. I know it's not. But Brock Purdy is the first and only quarterback to beat Tom Brady in his first career start ever.
Yeah, but do you really buy into that whole notion of like Tom Brady versus rookie quarterbacks? Like that's always more of a symptom of being on a good team, which I get. Brady goes a long way in, but like that San Francisco defense doesn't live on most teams starting rookie quarterbacks. It just feels like a different set of circumstances.
Die as a hero or live long enough to see yourself become a villain, Mike. And Tom Brady is the villain of this NFL season. And the fact that he gets to be notches on 18-year-olds' belts like Brock Purdy, like this is Mr. Irrelevant taking down the GOAT in his first try. Like I know it's not apples. I know that's not it. But that's how it's going to be written. Okay.
That is how it's going to be written. I do think it's incredible too that happened in the same game where Tom Brady had to listen to the linebacking core from the 49ers come up and ask him to sign Dre Greenlaw's ball and talk about how, like Fred Warner talking about, you don't understand, you know what an honor this is? Brady's like, you guys just whooped my ass. Leave me alone. This isn't coming off how you think it's coming off, and I'm not having fun right now.
STFU, please.
All right, number 5 on the top 5 this week. Shout out to the Panthers for having the best personnel group in the NFL. So this weekend, the Panthers got a win on the road against the Seattle Seahawks, and at one point during the game, they trotted out 8 offensive linemen in a personnel group. So you had the normal 5, you added 3 big hosses out there, and Brady Christensen, their offensive lineman out of BYU, said, quote, was fun to have 8 big uglies out there. It's a fun package we have. We call it the Arby's. We have the meats. I promise you, man, Arby's folks, if you don't get on this and do the right thing by those boys, you're going to regret this decision for the rest of their lives. That is how you get it done here in a weekend where we're going to spend a lot of time in this top 5 celebrating beef. I want to make sure we give those boys. Carolina, by the way, sneaking up behind that Tampa Bay Tom Brady-led team in the god-awful NFC South.
Oh,
saying.
yes.
Not out of the hunt.
Yes.
Not out of the hunt.
No. I love that we have the meats. That's Vin Rames, by the way, saying that. Did you know that?
Is it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Vin Rames.
You know, that makes sense.
It's great. But okay, let's go to the injuries just to wrap that up for number 4. This is a Shefty tweet.
Okay.
Kyle Shanahan told reporters that Deebo Samuel suffered a high ankle sprain. If the MRI confirms it, generally out 4 to 6 weeks with that injury. The first round of the playoffs is 5 weeks away from today.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, if they got Purdy Boy swag back there doing what he did this last game, you might even be able to afford to rest him that first round.
Oh, okay. So you believe in Brock Purdy? I don't think I got that from you last podcast.
Oh, you didn't think I believed in him? Like, I believed him enough to ask the question, should we start to think about them as Super Bowl contenders again? I'm not saying that I'm ready to say they're Super Bowl contenders again, but I'm ready to think about it. Ready to approach that thought. Ready to walk up to it. So we've got the Deebo Samuel injury there, which was on the good news front, but I know we had bad news from Monday Night Football, correct?
Yes. I'm sorry. I didn't finish up. Obviously, Kyler Murray, unfortunately, non-contact injury, left with 13:40 left in the first quarter. That's why we got this chance to see Colt McCoy run over one of the McCourty twins. But it didn't look good. Carted off the field. He was very upset, and I think that's pretty much it for the Cardinals this season. I don't know the playoff hunt at where they're exactly at, but I love Colt McCoy, but the way that offense, they can't beat the Patriots, and obviously the Patriots' second best defense in the league, but they kind of gave that game away to them on Monday night.
So in the current playoff standings right now, the Cardinals are nowhere to be found. They're 4-8, so that's not going to be any sort of worry for them. And Colt McCoy, while is a serviceable backup and a guy who spent a lot of time around this league, him truck sticking someone in the open field does not surprise me. Texas forever, but not going to be enough to overcome the various patchworks of injuries they've had, including Kyler Murray missing time already this season. We'll wait to see what the final word is on this. Hopefully, we all hope for the best, but certainly seeing it in real time, a non-contact injury like that, trying to cut in the open field usually never produces a lot of good news. Hopefully, it's good news. If it isn't, really glad that he got paid already. Love to see guys get that guaranteed money that's come their way so they're protected when situations like this do arise. But it's a massive setback for this Cardinals organization and the way that they were trying to align for the future, and with him as the foundation of it. I mean, the sun and the moon on that team is Kyler Murray, especially on offense.
Through 2028.
Oof. All right. So bad news certainly coming in droves in the NFL this last weekend. So again, hoping for some good news on the Kyler Murray front, similar to what we got from Deebo Samuel in that news. Brandon, number 4 in the top 5 for me, Trevor Lawrence, man, out here balling this last weekend. The Jacksonville Jaguars got a big-time statement win this past weekend, absolutely beating down the Tennessee Titans inside that division. They won 36-22. And Trevor Lawrence, 30 of 42, 368 yards and 3 touchdowns in this game. He looks like if you combined, I know we talked about these two guys the other day, his style of play actually looks like if you combined Tua and Justin Herbert, because he's got the size and incredible physical gifts of Justin Herbert, but everything about Justin Herbert, and when we've talked with Nate Tice about this, he's echoed it, mechanical precision. Justin Herbert's a football-eating robot. Trevor Lawrence looks like Justin Herbert took an edible. Everything about him is a little more relaxed, even before you get to the long hair, and he's got that same whip. When you watch Tua on his best days at Alabama, I always said he kind of reminded me of a viper, because when he went to finally cut the ball loose, it happened so quick. Him and his brother Talia both had that real lightning fast whip-like release, and Trevor's got a little bit of that, where you saw a couple of times when he scrambled, he'd get out of position, he'd have the ball tucked like he was going to run it, and then all of a sudden his eyes would be downfield and he'd see someone open, and he would just uncoil it and be able to fire it right away. And him being able to go out there and play quarterback like Gumby, really impressive. Every ball he threw, even the ones that were interceptable, were incredibly precise, like hit a linebacker directly in the face in a way where he was never going to catch it, stuck a bunch of balls in Zay Jones' hands, which based on the amount of drops that Zay had in the last couple of games, he really had to stick it in there. And this was one of those games where I feel like for anyone that had been hanging on to some of the ups and downs of this season, Trevor Lawrence at least assuaged any fears that he wasn't that dude. He is firmly that dude. Whatever happens with this team, he's the commodity that I will continue to trust the way I did when he was coming out of college.
He did prove it, Mike, and he has this season. Unfortunately, he proved it to everyone against my Ravens, but at 23 years old in 67 days, he's the youngest player in NFL history to have 350 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, and 1 rushing touchdown in a game, beating Kyler Murray.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is he's a freak athlete. Like, very smooth. You saw it running for that touchdown, too, when he broke into the open field, a legitimate threat on some of that zone read stuff down in the end zone. He's another one of those guys, incredible physical gifts that we all saw that we thought were going to get squandered. And I get it hasn't always been perfect this year. That is a football team that overall I would describe as immature right now. Not in that they are immature as individuals, but as a team, right? They play up and down to their competition. We see them go and perform. I saw Ben Solak tweet this. They score a bunch of points against the good defenses and then completely lose track of their time against the bad defenses. That reeks of, like we saw with Notre Dame this fall, a team that's not yet mature enough in their approach to go out there and consistently attack these other teams. They got a bunch of turnover help from the Tennessee Titans who are putting the ball on the mat all the time. When even Derrick Henry's fumbling, you know things aren't going your way, and that certainly aided the cause for the Jags in the first half.
Yeah. Women. Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
Is it fair to say that these first 2 seasons are mirroring that Josh Allen's first 2 seasons? Because that first rookie year was just not impressive, and then you start to see shines and flashes of it that second year, and it was that third year where he was him.
Yeah, I think there's something about that trajectory, like a little different with Trevor just because there was the coaching change in there. And
right.
So you had that as a part of the story and certainly a part of this. And listen, for their trajectory, Josh, where he was at Wyoming, certainly he had different things available to him than Trevor, who was at one of the premier programs of the college football playoff era. But Brandon, I'm praying that that's the pathway because gifts-wise, that's what he's on par with. He's not as quite filled out and physically imposing as Josh is. He's not going like Josh is more Cam Newton. Like he's closer to that than Trevor Lawrence is close to him. But I do think, especially with Trevor and Justin, there's a lot of really interesting similarities for 2 guys that can just fit balls into impossible windows. So he's number 4. It was awesome.
Yeah, Mike, actually, I want to stick with that game for my next bottom 5. I'm at number 3, right? Yes. Yep. Derrick Henry, after having 119 yards in the first half against the Jacksonville Jaguars, they held him to 2 yards in the second half, Mike. They end up beating, obviously, we talked about this, but the Jags end up beating the Titans 36-22, and Derrick Henry spoke about needing to be a better leader and accountability, X, Y, and Z, and Mike Vrabel talked about how embarrassing the loss was and all the turnovers and X, Y, and Z, but I see this too much with Derrick Henry, and I'm not saying that this is indicative of a trend, but he can be hot and set the internet on fire one half and just completely disappear another half.
Well, I think part of it is when you look at the Titans' offense in this game, they became really predictable once the game script got out of whack because of the turnovers. Because even at the beginning of this game, you saw without Treylon Burks out there and available, there wasn't much outside of Robert Woods in the downfield passing game. And so Jacksonville was loading up the box on early downs, challenging them up there, putting 5 D-line bodies, 4 guys, and then Josh Allen up along the line of scrimmage and trying to set the tone that way, and then they'd back off and play pass on the other downs. But once they got to the second half and you had them down 2 scores, Tennessee, once they had to drop back and pass, now it became really obvious when they were getting under center and running, and they put even more bodies. They were running that bare front and covering everyone up on the inside and just having their D tackles reset the line of scrimmage. Like I was talking to my dad about this weekend. When you're a D tackle, because he gets asked all the time. My dad was, for anyone unaware, my dad was a 9-year defensive tackle in the NFL, and he always got asked, what would it be like tackling Derrick Henry? And he's like, when you're a D lineman, it's not that bad because he doesn't have a full head of steam when he's getting to that first level. And with these guys, the D-line for Jacksonville was resetting the line of scrimmage and getting Derrick Henry in the backfield. And so you're right, he's much less effective when that's the case, but I think that was a product of the game script got their offense into such obvious situations that Jacksonville Jacksonville's defense was able to go and really schematically, and then just the way they attacked it, they turned it into 9-on-7 and 7-on-7, siloed into different looks, and made it really easy for that defense to pin their ears back and go to work.
Yeah, when you think about just how much they were down by the second half, it makes sense why they didn't need Derrick Henry. But I've seen them lean on Derrick Henry on some draws and random shit. Like they lean on him when they should be throwing the ball. So they made an adjustment.
Oh yeah, no, it's not an excuse for that Titans offense by any means. You are absolutely right. So number 3 on the top 5. Just the Eagles. They're a full-blown wagon right now. They handed out and administered the most serious ass whooping of the weekend and just continue to rewrite offensive records in Philadelphia. Jalen Hurts had his 10th rushing touchdown of the season this weekend. He's the first quarterback in NFL history to have double-digit rushing touchdowns in back-to-back years. He had 10 last year as well. Him and Cam Newton are the only players at the position with multiple such seasons in their career. The Eagles also set a new record for rushing touchdowns in a season with 27. A.J. Brown became the 4th Eagles wide receiver to have 1,000 receiving yards in a season and 10 touchdowns. Hurts and Miles Sanders both have 10 rushing touchdowns. It's the first time in Eagles history that multiple players have reached that benchmark. Those stats courtesy of Tim McManus. So that team is the most complete team in football right now, offensively for sure, bar none.
They definitely are, Mike, but is any credit going to Nick Sirianni?
Oh, listen, Nick
Sirianni?
I think Nick Sirianni deserves a ton of credit in the way that we also talk about like Dan Campbell, where some of the things are hard to quantify, but we've seen Nick Sirianni be that quintessential Philly tough guy on the sideline and kind of be an attitude guy for this team. He goes and does that, by the way, so that his quarterback doesn't have to. Because you see Jalen Hurts during these games, stone face. There was a picture of A.J. Brown and all those guys on the sideline celebrating that was going around, and Jalen Hurts is just sitting there like waiting for the next thing to come up, waiting for the next challenge. His coach is over there hyping up fans, and Jalen Hurts is just sitting there waiting for the next task.
Who would have thought that Jalen Hurts would be so good and so poised and so seemingly perfect that they would get the Tom Brady, Bill Belichick treatment? It's
incredible. Or you're already going to start to try and pry away credit one from the other?
I mean, it's to that point where like you don't. That's why I brought it up, Mike. You don't think of the head coach as the reason why this team is doing what they're doing. It's that Jalen Hurts is at the helm.
Well, and I think also you have to look at like Howie in that front office, because so much of this is also about building the team the right way. So there's a lot of credit to go around at this point because there's a lot of good happening in Philadelphia right now.
Yeah. Okay, well, back to the bad. The Texans couldn't complete the upset, Mike.
Man.
They couldn't do it. After
Super
leading
Texan.
After the Houston Texans led the entire game against their big brother, the Dallas Cowboys, Houston goes scoreless in the 4th and allowed Dak Prescott and Kellen Moore, can't forget Kellen Moore, to march 98 yards down the field with a 2-yard rush from Ezekiel Elliott at the end of the game with barely any time left on the clock, Mike. It was embarrassing. I felt bad for Lovie Smith. I was very excited for him in the possible second win of the season. But the Texans just couldn't get it done. And that is sad for me. That is why this is number 2 in my bottom 5.
Understandable. Would have loved to see them pull off the upset for all those reasons that you mentioned. Going through a losing season like that is hard. No matter who you are, no matter how well you're paid, showing up to work when the season's going like this is right shit. They were using a 2-quarterback system with Jeff Driscoll and Davis Mills in that game. It was at you saw those wild A-10 formations where they're splitting linemen out. They threw the whole bag of tricks at Dallas and had them on the ropes and then couldn't close the deal. The one silver lining, if you're a Texans fan, is you kept that vice grip hold on the number 1 overall pick. And that's really what you're playing for if you're a Texans fan right now. So, happy
Very
day,
important.
at least on that front. Brandon, number 2, this one goes to the Detroit Lions offense, not only for scoring 25 points in their 5th straight game, which the last time that happened for Detroit was 1954, but this also goes to the fact that, again, they completed what will go down in history as the greatest football play of this season. 3rd and 7 with the game on the line, taking Penei Sewell, their offensive tackle, on three plays apart. Nate Tice did a great job breaking it down on Twitter. They put Penei Sewell in motion on the right at tight end off the line of scrimmage, brought him across the line of scrimmage to the left, and ran a run play. And then 2 plays later on the opposite side of the 2-minute warning, they went and motioned him from left to right, and they threw him a pass that should be immortalized in some sort of statue form or in some sort of painting form, hung in the Louvre, maybe taken to some sort of Smithsonian Institute. I'm just spitballing ideas here. But the way Penei Sewell moved in that 340-pound, 22-year-old body, he is a 22-year-old who is likely going to be an All-Pro or at least a Pro Bowler this season, got down like that. Unprecedented times. This all goes back to the Grit King, Big Balls McGee himself, Dan Campbell, for making it happen.
But Penei Sewell,
bad man.
The person that everyone wanted the Bengals to take, right? Mike, the way he didn't play selfishly after he saw the sticks, he did a dive. Like, people think that was like losing your feet. He did a dive. He could have kept his feet, but he dived inbounds and then was getting up to celebrate and dealing with whatever linebacker was trying to strip the ball away. And we just gave him a big, nice, fat offensive line bear paw swipe at him. Like, get off of me. And went to celebrate with his team. It was beautiful to see.
Brandon, I'm so glad you tried to dispel these ugly rumors that he tripped or fell down and didn't just do the right football play there, as if he wasn't fully prepared for the situation. Great players, great coaching. It was all there. Thank you for stepping up to the plate.
I honestly thought so. When you say he's 22, I was like, oh, maybe he did trip. But I'm thinking he made the heady play.
Exactly. We're going to give him that credit.
Yes. Okay, let's end this thing, Mike. At the bottom, the Baltimore Ravens quarterback situation.
Oof, man.
All of those injuries, Mike. But not only that, John Harbaugh and the He's Fine police. So let me just break this down. In the Ravens' defeat over the Steelers, 16-14, Lamar Jackson was injured, put in a concussion protocol midway through the third quarter. Then Tyler Huntley, Snoop, as he's affectionately called, was injured with 7 minutes and 26 seconds left to go in the third quarter by Mika Fitzpatrick. Really messed him up. Then you got, what is his name? Huh? No, I'm sorry.
Were you doing a bit, or did you actually forget his name? I thought that was a bit.
I was trying to do the bit. But you didn't say the person's name, so I was like, okay. It was the Brown.
Anthony Brown.
Anthony Brown. Yeah, Anthony Brown.
Oh, so
Anthony
you didn't
Brown
know the name, and you were trying to do the bit to get me to say the name.
I knew it was like something like that, but I didn't even bother writing them down when I was writing collecting these notes for this, because this is the note that I had that was from John Harbaugh talking specifically about Snoop. Talking about Huntley getting back because Lamar Jackson he's not coming back for these next couple of games. John Harbaugh said, "We'll see how it goes. You trust the docs on this one. They'll do a good job with them. Whatever it is, it is." But he's reciting the months and the years backwards. Can you do that right now?
Oh God. Oh
Mike.
No.
Mike. What do you think?
No, you can't do amateur concussion doctor at the podium.
It was surprising to see, but it's also very true to the football guy that all the Harbaughs are. You know,
they are, but like John's the one that's so measured and smart, and he's at the good organization, and
listen.
Oh man,
to answer his question, no, I can't. So
honestly,
he may be better off than me.
The alphabet backwards is always the thing that blew me away when people tried to hold that up as any effective measure for testing sobriety or anything. I'm like, it would take me a full 10 minutes to try and do that backwards now.
Yeah. I was going to say a 5 for the first half. So yeah, that time's out right. I was going to say I need 5 minutes to even get from like Z to K.
Right. It's like the only thing I can like do is start is ZYXW, and I can get there pretty easily.
You better than me.
And then
it's V.
And then it's VUTSR.
SR. Q?
SR.
Is it PQ? Or QP? It's PQ.
Oh, yeah. Then it's SRQP.
It's not QP.
Yeah, it is. It's PQ. Elemental P.
Okay.
So it's QP O NML
J
KJ IHG FEDCBA. I did it.
Did you?
I did it.
Yes, you ran at the last. You sprinted there at the back end, so you almost lost me. But
front and back end, I could sprint. The rest of it, I am just holding on for dear life. Dear God. All right.
I proved my point that I couldn't do it.
All right. Now that I've accomplished the most successful thing I'm going to do on this podcast today, I'll finish off with number one with the only person who had a tougher week than I just did. Number one in the top 5 goes to Baker Mayfield all the way back on Thursday Night Football, man. 48 hours of absolute madness. Baker Mayfield, who now famously bought his plane ticket to Los Angeles before he knew the Rams were signing him this past week. He ended up with a 90-minute meeting when he got to the facility, had limited reps in the Wednesday practice, and then ended up playing in the Thursday night game, going 22 of 35, 230 passing yards, and a go-ahead touchdown to Van Jefferson with 10 seconds left on an 8-play, 98-yard drive to seal a 17-16 win in that game. Brandon, there were probably still guys in that huddle he was breaking down at the end he didn't know, but that didn't stop Baker Mayfield in a complete delirium from headbutting his friends on the sideline, going to talk up with the media, and just in general, capping off one of the most impressive moments and something I know will infuriate coaches forever, because this guy just came in and raw dogged the game plan, and not having to go out there and spend a million hours in meetings or be coached up in explicit detail by everything going on, I bet deep down makes those coaches a little nervous, because it's like, how many other guys are going to be like, well, shit, I don't have to do that. Look at how Baker balled in that game.
Mike, that was at quarterback. You haven't mentioned the position yet. The fact that he did that at quarterback.
Yeah, like we all lost our shit when Christian McCaffrey made a cross-country flight and then took handoffs in Kyle Shanahan's offense.
I'm still impressed by Von Miller still being good with the Buffalo Bills. Outside of him being injured right now, it was impressive, and I love to hear that. I guess I've been a fan of Baker ever since that playoff win on Thursday Night Football when he broke the record for the Browns. Like you're kind of rooting for him a little bit, but for him to say that this win was the most important win of his career, like that's saying something, Mike. He's been through some shit.
You know what? You don't even have to be a fan of Baker Mayfield to appreciate how insane what he pulled off was. And now on the back end, we need some advertiser to do the right thing and start the new Baker insurance commercials where he lives in SoFi. Complete the prophecy. Ooh. Allow the best acting quarterback. You saw what he did with minimal preparation. Imagine what he can do with the script, game script or otherwise. Going to be electric.
Well, you know who's already doing commercials outside of SoFi? Your boy Justin Herbert. And that's not going to be good for Baker to do a side-by-side with that man.
Listen, I'm telling you, I love Herbo. Incredible football player. We talked about him. Absolute dog. He's not the actor that Baker is.
No.
So if it's got to be one or the other, I'm picking Baker every time on that front. There's a new sheriff in town, and that is the best acting quarterback in football in Baker Mayfield. That is top 5, bottom 5 from week 14 in the NFL. We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back on the other side of this, we are going to talk to 2-time World Cup champions, Ashlyn Harris and Allie Krieger, co-hosts of the Most Important Thing podcast, about what to expect in the World Cup semifinals, what's next for the U.S. men's national team, and more.
Us.
No, definitely. How you guys been liking the podcast game so far? Been good to you?
Awesome.
Yeah, it's been.
Can't complain.
Yeah, it's been great.
I am jealous because my producer and co-host, we do it far apart from each other. So when I see your guys set up and you guys get to sit there with a drink and stuff, I'm like, they're doing podcasting way better than we are. This is awesome.
We are definitely doing a little bit more upscale, that's for sure. But
yes,
I love it.
Yes,
There's no going back from here, though.
Yeah, we can't. We can't go to a studio.
That is true. You guys have caviar taste now when it comes to podcasting.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
That's perfect. Well, we appreciate you. We're more of like a buffet line around here, but we'll try and make it as accommodating as possible for you guys. So
we didn't bring drinks, but we brought coffee.
Yeah, we brought our coffee.
There we go. You know what? That feels very spiritually connected to this podcast. Big coffee energy on this podcast. But no, thank you guys for taking the time. Obviously, we're excited to have you here. You know, two-time World Cup champions. A lot to really shed some light and insight for the people that listen here who are podcasts or a lot more casual soccer fans, and therefore will be a lot more familiar with you guys than what we've been getting to know our men's national team during this World Cup run and seeing everything that's gone on. We got the semifinals coming up. This podcast will release on Tuesday. And I just kind of wanted to start there. You guys have been to the mountaintop on this stage twice and know this feeling. So take us into what the preparation becomes like getting ready for the semifinals. You're out of the group stage, you've made it through, and you're one of the last 4 teams left. How does that affect the way that you guys go about preparing for what comes next?
Well, it's just everything is so magnified now. Every moment matters. And you're at a position in the tournament where you've played a lot of games. You know, you could have, little types of injuries or fatigue, whatever the case might be. So it's an interesting time in the tournament where you're resting, but you're making sure you're getting enough repetition and touches to be prepared for what's to come, but everything's magnified. So even every bit of detail once you play at this stage, it's anyone's game. Honestly, when you look back to our men's game against the Netherlands, when we had the first chance and opportunity to score a goal, everything is so limited now. It's when you add up all those moments and those inches, it literally makes the difference between winning and losing. You might only get 2 looks on goal. But just depending on who puts the ball in the back of the net, who shows up that day, literally, that's why I love football so much, is because anything can happen at any moment. So it's anyone's trophy to take at this point.
Yeah, I mean, that became abundantly clear. We go back to the quarterfinal round and we see Brazil get upset and we see Harry Kane missing penalties, all of these things that were wild. I mean, just going back to that for a second, I mean, Brazil losing in the manner in which they did, how surprised were you guys? Where does that rank as far as tournament upsets that we've seen? Because I know that stunned a lot of people.
Yeah.
That was I think one of the biggest upsets I've seen in a very long time. I was a little bit upset because I felt like they had a team this year that could actually win the whole thing. I think, but Croatia is also so good. They're I don't know, they're just really intelligent. They're so just on the ball, so technical and tactically smart. And in every recent tournament they've been in, they've gotten to at least the quarterfinal, semifinal, and then in the Euros, they were in the final, I think. Who was it? England or France? I forget. But recently, Croatia has just been unbelievable as well. And for Modric, I'm so happy for him too, because this is obviously his last World Cup. And so, yeah, it was disappointing because Brazil has such a great, young, talented team. But that's what's so exciting about the World Cup, that anybody can win on any given day. And that's kind of what that day, I feel like those 2 upsets really showed us.
And they just didn't perform well. And when you're at the highest level and the biggest stage, it comes to nip you in the butt. You can't expect to be the best team in the world and have subpar performances on the biggest stage. It just does not happen.
Each game has to be getting better and better throughout the tournament. It can't, you can't really have a slump later down the road. So you might start out not as, fast that you would now in the quarterfinal or semifinals. So it was kind of surprising that they kind of took a little dive or a divot in the middle of the tournament.
And building towards that crescendo, like you said, goes back to what you guys talk about. How do you manage the lead up here? We hear the conversation around everyone's fitness all the time leading into these moments. I do want to look at some of those ending moments there. I talked about Kane and the penalty kick. We saw PKs affect a number of these outcomes. What's the psychology of those moments? I know a lot of general fans come in and sort of complain about the structure, and they're sad to see a game end in a setting like that. But for you guys who have been a part of this, both as a goalkeeper and otherwise, what is the psychology of that moment that you approach it as a team?
But honestly, how entertaining.
Yeah. Oh, it's the best.
How stressful in these moments. You lose years off of your life just watching PK shootouts. I love it. It makes me so uncomfortable, even when I'm not in goal.
Yeah.
I enjoy every second. But honestly, like, I think that's the thrill. I think it gives a different element that's unique and different. And, you know, they keep trying to change rules to make the advantage with the kicker. But what people don't realize is these goalkeepers have studied years and years, and there's stats and statistics based on where these players are going. Because when, you know, as a professional player and you take PKs every single day for this moment, you know, you either play with them at clubs, you've seen them take 50 PKs in their EPL league. Like, there's such a strategy behind it that if you step up as a kicker and you decide to change that, it could really screw with you and your momentum and your like what you're planning and your preparation on doing. And maybe that's Kane's taken a lot of PKs in this tournament. He's taken a lot of PKs over his career, and sometimes it's that one lack of focus where I need to change where I'm going, and boom, I blast it over. I'm not used to hitting it this way.
And him and Larice are teammates, so that was like that's a little intimidating.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. He's probably done 100 PKs against Harry Kane, and that probably messed with Harry's mind.
And that's wild to think about, that it's someone you've gone, and like you said, you've probably drilled that with in practice when you're taking PKs all the time. So that level of familiarity, good Lord, that's so you guys,
it's scary.
You guys both like the penalty kick format, though. Like, you guys love that. You think that's a great part of the sport?
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, we've been in a few, you know, with the national team in big time games, and so I feel like if that has to, you know, make or break the decision on who wins and loses, then that's really the only way we should play and end the game. Because can you imagine just continuing the game until someone scores? It's like the games could go on forever and ever and ever. So I feel like this is just the best way to kind of, you know, have a team win. But it's exciting, it's nerve-wracking, and you don't just train the penalty kicks. You don't just train like a week before you go to the tournament. You're actually doing this every single day, or you should be doing this every single day, which I can't say I do, but we do have PK like practices, and that's how the coaches usually choose who's going to step up and take them. So you usually hit, like, I would say 3 a day, you know, months before the tournament, to just see like who your top 5 or 6 could be.
I think it's always fascinating, those specific situations in sports and how everyone goes about that, because you're so spot on. It's so much more. It's it's the little bit of the iceberg that you see above the top versus all the work that goes into that. Speaking of all the work that goes into that, I know, and I had heard you guys talk on the Dan Le Batard show on your guys' podcast about, you know, where the men's program is right now versus what you guys have been able to accomplish with the women's national team, and wanted to hear what you guys made of the headline and some of the reportings coming out. We heard from Greg Berhalter, who spoke what he said and what was supposed to be something that wasn't on the record about a player he didn't name that was not meeting expectations on the field during their training in the lead up. Said them as the staff were almost ready to set that player home. There's a lot of people that are speculating that was Gio Reyna and why we didn't see him on the pitch so often. How did you guys receive that as people with a lot of pride in what this, you know, program has done on the women's side and what you guys have accomplished as far as the culture, when you hear a headline like that about this team?
Yeah, it's really disappointing to hear that. And I heard, you know, everything's speculation, so you really don't know what happened in that bubble. And, you know, we can only, you know, speculate that he had a bad attitude. He was probably extremely pissed and disappointed he didn't get the playing time that he thought he should have been getting at the tournament. I kind of agree. I was a little disappointed, truthfully.
Same.
I thought there was a lot of great players that didn't get the looks that they should have, especially as we were progressing in the tournament and we weren't getting, like, we just weren't connecting in the final third. You can't keep moving on in games and not score goals. So I can agree too. But at the end of the day, you can only control like your individual performance and your attitude and your work ethic, and like if you're just showing up like an asshole every day, you're actually affecting the group. And in turn, that affects the culture, and that affects so much more. And you have to play your role. You may not agree with your role all the time, but you're in a team sport. So you have to like show up and support the people around you. And if he wasn't doing that, you're actually hurting the collective. And yeah, you got to go. If you can't play your role, you got to go. And as a coach, these are the things you have to know moving into a tournament. No matter how good they are they good for the team?
Yeah, it's a difficult decision to make because you're right. That was the outside reaction for all of us was, why isn't this incredible young talent being given an opportunity to go and do that? But it seems to go a little bit deeper than that. We'll wait and see if we ever hear more specifically because like you said, this is all very siloed where it's coming out of. In general for you guys, coming off this though, takeaways from the men's side and what they accomplished. What does the next step look like in your guys' eyes as people who know what it looks like when this is done at the highest level?
I think they can be so proud of themselves to where this team, placed in the tournament. I do feel like there could have been a little bit more. We always, want to make sure that the standard is higher and higher every single year and every single tournament. And so I do think that, we have a great young group of men who are performing really well together. I see that they're building those relationships on the field together. And I do think that crop of young men can really make an impact this next World Cup at home. And so I'm excited for the future of the men's team. I do feel like they've earned our respect in our country a little bit more than they have in the past, just by proving themselves and making it to the round of 16. The performance, obviously we were disappointed against the Netherlands because I do think they played so well against England and Iran before that, and I was hoping in that game they were going to continue that level and that confidence. And so just looking back on their tournament specifically, I'm very excited for them. We do need a number 9, so that's the next goal. That's probably the biggest hole that Ash and I have talked about within the team, and I'm sure it's obvious to everyone and the coaching staff. So we spoke about this before in our podcast. If I'm 16, 17 years old and I'm a young man within the program, or even not, I'm like licking my chops, ready to go in that position, and really wanting now to work hard to prove myself, because that position is completely wide open, and we really need that in order to kind of be successful moving into these next big tournaments and games.
I was going to say, and for people that may not be familiar, like what does that position really bring as far as the capstone and the way that you're talking about it to team success?
Well, I think, the most important thing about a team is having a solid spine to the team. So you have a great goalkeeper, center back, center midfield. And then you need the number 9. You need the goal scorer. You need somebody who has a knack for scoring goals and just getting in the box and being able to finish on a dime. So we need to find that type of player who, it could be also a player who's just a target player, a hold up player. But we do need somebody to be able to finish and to be able to kind of take control of the game in the final third. And I don't think we've had that. Since a Landon Donovan or a Clint Dempsey, even plays for Toronto. Sorry, one of our best forwards in the past. Anyway, I just feel like we haven't had a really good 9 recently, and we need that in order to be successful.
So as far as that big time finisher, spinning it back then to what's left of the tournament now, who are you guys most excited to watch of these final 4 teams? We do have some great players. Obviously, everyone's enthralled with Mbappe and what he's been able to do with France. As they go. All right, you know what? I'm glad.
Are you kidding me? He's 23.
I'm glad I got that reaction from you guys because I said, listen, I'm a novice soccer fan. I'm someone who watches casually, and I said he's the kind of good that transcends any knowledge of the sport, where I just see like that guy moves different than everybody else.
Oh my goodness.
For you guys as experts in all of this, what about his game stands out to you guys?
Well, he's not human. I wouldn't even put him in the category of human at all. I mean, he is incredible, and he is so young, Like I mean, the last World Cup, think about that. He was 19. The maturity of this young man at his age and what he's accomplished and how freaking good he is, that is scary. He's not even in his prime. That actually terrifies me a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, that terrifies me. You see, like, the way he can accelerate and the way he sees the game and how he can manipulate players, it is spectacular to watch.
The timing for me. Like, how he knows and understands the timing of his runs and the space. It's like, at 23, I don't think I was
incredible.
I was like, what does that even mean? But
he's in a category of his own. You can talk about the Messis. You can talk about the Ronaldos.
He's on his way.
He is on a completely different path.
Wow. All right. So you're saying, like, if he keeps up on this trajectory, we're going to be talking about him as the one that takes the mantle from those guys eventually.
For sure. 100%. For sure. Hands down.
Wow. All right. That's incredible. It's good to know because, again, my peanut brain just sees him like, this guy does everything athletically, the stop and go, like you mentioned, the acceleration is all there, but
it's like a rocket.
Yeah, it's
even with the ball,
you can't stop him.
Right? Like,
you just can't stop him.
I think that's the most impressive thing is I just see him when he's going up with the ball, able to stop and start and speed it up on people in a way that I'm glad to know that you guys are even like, yeah, that's not normal. Normal people don't do that.
It's not.
Oh, too funny. It's really exciting to watch there. And like we said, we've got the story with Morocco being the first African nation to make it to the semis on the men's side of things, which is incredible. Croatia that you guys talked about also. So very exciting stuff coming up in the Final Four. And I know everyone's looking forward to the finish in that portion of the tournament. I've appreciated you guys giving us so much of your time. I would be remiss, and I wanted to give a chance on the back end of this just because I know so much this weekend was so jarring for so many people as we heard the news, the passing of Grant Wahl very suddenly over during the tournament, during the match involving Argentina. And just wanted to ask you guys, as people that have come up through the highest ranks of this sport, what Grant meant to you guys, what Grant meant to soccer in this country for so many people during his career.
I think we're still processing it because I'm still a little shook at the news. I still don't believe that it's real. He was so incredibly nice to us. He was always so kind. He was generous of his time and concern for women's soccer, and he supported us, he inspired us, and he motivated us through his beautiful words, through his incredible journalism. I think he's unmatched. I feel like no one will really be able to step into his shoes. He's kind of in a league of his own, and he was always so gracious to us and so supportive when we came out with our engagement and, marriage and everything. And the way he would write, it was more coming from an angle of, lifting players up and, obviously stating the facts, but he was in a way so careful with how he would say things. And that's why I feel like people really respected him, because he took more care than just wanting to get a story out there for likes. And I always appreciated that. And the way that he wanted to fight for what was right constantly, he lived that truth. And so that's something that obviously has inspired, I think I can speak for Ash, has inspired both of us to keep doing what we're doing and fighting for what we believe in, and really speaking up for what's right. And he always did that. And so that's what I will always remember. And it's just really, really sad for the soccer community. I think we're definitely still processing it and feel awful for the family, and hope that they can find some peace and healing soon.
Yeah, it's incredibly, like you said, stunning news that still doesn't feel real, but all our thoughts and love certainly to his family, to many people, and you've seen the outpouring from so many in and around the soccer community, even beyond that, his colleagues at SI, so many of the people that he was able to affect. And so a legacy that will transcend so much of what's going on just right here in the here and now. So guys, thank you for your perspective on that. Thank you for the insight on all of this. This was a ton of fun. Thank you for coming and eating at the buffet line that is our podcast here. Everyone, make sure you guys check out the most important thing, Caviar Taste in Podcasting, with two of the absolute best in the business. Allie, Ashlyn, thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Great to meet you.
All right, Brandon, you know what time it is?
I do, Mike. I do. And I apologize in advance for this being too churchy. This that proclaim Christ is born in Bethlehem.
Wow. Incredible.
I was just practicing. Should I try it now? Should I do it?
No, leave that in. That is perfect. That reminds me of the Charlie Brown Christmas special, which is one of my staples that we talked about for viewing every year during the holiday season.
Yes. No, wait a minute. Mike, can I be honest with you? I know it's been said before and jokingly on Step Brothers. I literally blacked out.
Yeah, no, I could tell, Brandon. That's why I wasn't going to let you do that again, because I saw the oxygen leaving your brain. So instead, make sure people download, subscribe, rate, review Gojo. Leave it a 5-star rating so Brandon doesn't pass out for naught. Give him clicks and attention for that at Gojo Show on Twitter. Help him find songs that are more in his vocal range for the rest of the holiday season here on This, That, and the Third. Brandon, not much Christmas spirit in this. Saw this report yesterday that quite frankly pissed me off. Heather Dinich from ESPN reported former Navy head coach Ken Niumatalolo told ESPN on Monday that he was sitting by himself at his locker after the Navy's 2017 double overtime loss to Army when the athletic director Chet Gladchuk walked in and fired him immediately after the game. Coach Ken said, first of all, we had just gotten kicked in the gut. I was a little numb prior to him saying that, so most of it I couldn't comprehend. I'm just like, Chet, why don't you take some time to relax? And he said, well, it's been building up. Now, both of them have been here for a long time. Chet's been there since 2001. We talked about Coach Ken's been there since 2008. But the fact that with that in mind, this was a decision that couldn't wait at least 24 hours to let this man absorb a gut-wrenching loss based on everything he meant to the university. Like, we just saw what this can look like with someone that means a lot to the university that you deeply respect, and the way Stanford handled David Shaw's announcement of his retirement after this last season. Now, Coach Ken went on to cite, as a competitor, a lot of the different disadvantages that Navy has relative to even the other service academies, as far as what's available to them, the resources on campus, what they are and aren't allowed to do with the COVID fifth years that they weren't able to get because of the Naval Academy's different requirements, and even went and said, I told them, listen, I just want to finish out my contract. I have 1 year left on my contract. Let me finish that out, and if we don't improve, you don't have to worry about firing me. I will resign at the end of the season. But the fact that this athletic director could not have respect enough for a man who seems to be one of the few universally beloved and respected figures in college football is quite honestly, it pissed me off. And for people who understood that this move might be possible, right? Navy had been trending down on the field in the last couple of years. You could understand them making the move, but to go about it this way, we never had to question Ken Niumatalolo as a leader. I now have questions about Chet Gladchuk, their athletic director, as a leader of that program.
Absolutely. And I'm glad he came out and shared this information, because I think it's not going to stop another head coach from getting that job, but I think it paints a picture of potentially where the program's headed with Chet Gladchuk at the helm.
Yeah, I've seen plenty of tweets and answers from alums of the Naval Academy who are not happy to see it handled this way, because this is not something that you would expect from an institution like that. So, again, Coach Ken Niumatalolo, one of the best men in college football, I think done wrong in the way that they handle this. There was going to be no right way. If he wanted to keep his job, there were going to be very few instances, but even still, right in the aftermath of that loss, just doesn't feel like the time or the place to all of a sudden drop that in his lap too. Brandon, let's get to that so I can get my blood pressure down. We have heard a lot of rumblings about the Dallas Cowboys over the last few weeks and their interest in signing a veteran wide receiver down the stretch of the NFL season. We had hot and heavy flirting with Odell Beckham Jr., only for the Cowboys to ultimately sign former Colts wideout T.Y. Hilton to a contract on Monday. Brandon, this is such classic Jerry Jones bait and switch, wanting to be the center of attention, saying, hey, you know what? Odell Beckham Jr. is the center of all this public flirting. Let's go and check this out. And then let's talk very publicly about how we're a little worried about the medical side of this before we ultimately go and sign somebody else.
Well, I imagine T.Y. Hilton did a workout, Mike.
Listen, I'd imagine all those things to be true. I just think it's funny how we didn't hear a peep about T.Y. through this whole process, but every chance Jerry got, he made sure to bring up, hey, we're not totally out of the woods on the Odell Beckham Jr. thing, but we are concerned. But we wouldn't rule it out in the long run here. Jerry knows what he's doing. Jerry's a master of the attention business, and this just feels like another bit of Jerry Jones doing the Pied Piper thing at the helm of one of the richest organizations in sports.
He could have been talking straight to T.Y. the entire time, for all we know. But it did give, that signing had me reeling, thinking about all of the T.Y. Hilton alike type of wide receivers that are out there that could possibly be signed for playoff pushes, Mike. Like, I know it's not realistic, but my mind went to Anquan Bolton. Like, I just feel like he's somewhere.
No, you're never 100% or 0% safe from Anquan Bolton possibly returning and dunking footballs all over you. I have no idea where Anquan Bolton is either. Maybe he'll be on Lord knows T.O. is waiting in the wings. We know those hands work. We found everyone outside of that CVS found that out. So old wide receivers waiting to break back into the game. Shout out to T.Y., one of my favorite celebrations in football. The T.Y. in the end zone making its triumphant return here. So congratulations
to the star.
Go ahead and do it to him. Brandon, speaking of stars, this weekend I mentioned I went to the Los Angeles Chargers game against the Dolphins, and at one point during the game, for anyone that saw our podcast release yesterday, you may have seen a picture that I took from the Jumbotron of that game. They were doing Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon lookalikes there, which, as you can imagine with the Valerians, got a little bit problematic in my view of how they were going to handle some of those comps inside the stadium.
Were they chasing Jesus Christ has dreads, so shake him? Like, were they chasing the dreaded head?
Yes.
Dreadheads?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So it went there, but they put up Joffrey Baratheon on the season, which if people didn't watch Game of Thrones, he's the worst. And they put up a guy on there who clearly didn't watch the show because he looked jazzed just to be on the Jumbotron, and he's celebrating it. And I'm like, my brother in Christ, that is not the comparison you want. And our friend, Mina Kimes, ESPN NFL analyst, tweeted at us, most celebrity lookalikes are flattering. Who's a celebrity that you don't want to be compared to, a la Joffrey Baratheon? And Brandon, I don't know about you, the only one I can come up with, and it's not even that I don't want to be compared to this person, because I don't think Zach Galifianakis is a bad-looking guy. I think he's really funny, but I get compared to Zach Galifianakis very specifically from The Hangover 2, where he is bald in that movie and even a little more unkempt. And that's the part that feels less cute.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Do you have a...
I don't see it. I'll say that. I don't see it.
Thank you for lying to me. All bald bearded...
I don't. That one picture you posted, I guess, when I'm squinting my eyes, I don't have my prescription sunglasses on. But
every bald bearded white man looks the same. It's okay to admit it. I'm saying it so you don't have to. Do you have a doppelganger that you reject when you get compared to, Brandon?
Well, I don't know, Mike. I don't know if you know this, Mike, but I'm very handsome. So I get compared to a lot of greats.
You actually are. Like,
I thank you. I'm usually in the top 5 of most places I work. Don't do that.
Do you walk around taking that straw poll, or do you just kind of hear that through the grapevine?
It gets pushed on me, Mike. To be honest with you, people's like they want to go out their way and say, like, Brandon, you're one of the most top 5 handsome men in this office. What do you think of the water fountain? You know, stuff like that. So, anyways, I've gotten compared to Reggie Bush plenty of times. I've gotten compared to Cam Newton. Now, you remember when I used to have the chin strap? That's when Reggie Bush.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Cam Newton I've gotten compared to. Unfortunately, Herschel Walker. It's fine. God. Georgia dodged the bullet there. But the one that I've gotten that gives me a little pause is when people tell me that I look like the guy from Medea. And I'm like, okay, so
Tyler Perry?
They say I look like Tyler Perry, which is okay at times, but the connection to Medea is the thing that bothers me a little bit, Mike. And then my favorite doppelganger that I can compare to when I'm only rocking the mustache is Burt Reynolds. I look like a young Burt Reynolds with just the mustache.
Hold on, I have to pull up a picture of Burt Reynolds right now.
People are going to be listening. It's like, I thought Brandon was black.
I love the notion of someone who has only consumed this as an audio medium and has thought at various junctures that, like, we've had enough conversations that indicate you're a black man, and now all of a sudden they're reconsidering everything. This is like when you grow up reading the Harry Potter books and then you finally see the movie and that image you've had in your head of the characters is all of a sudden shattered and lost forever. Now someone who's thought you looked one way thinks you look like Burt Reynolds now.
I mean, hey, when I got my shades on and I got the mustache, you know what I'm saying? You know, look like Burt, look like young Burt. You know what I mean? What can you do? Young Reynolds rap.
Burt would be a good rap name.
Young Burt. Have I told you the rap name I settled on and we can get out of here?
No, what is it?
I think I really like obese. Like O''BEAST, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's but it's
No, I get it.
Like it.
I get it. I think it's great. Honestly. At Obese on Twitter is likely what Brandon's handle is going to be pretty soon. Hopefully Papa Elam will let him stay verified with that. I
got to get my drop. Like, I'm like me breathing fat.
I was just going to say, it can't be the Rick Ross grunt. It's got to be you gasping for air. It's got to sound like someone who's snoring in their sleep.
Obese on the track. Watch your back. I got fat on the fat in the front and the back like a fatty pack.
Oh. If you enjoy Brandon's Fat Fanny Pack and his bars, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review Gojo wherever you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating and a review for Obese. And make sure you check us out on the DraftKings YouTube channel if you want to double check and make sure that Brandon does or does not look like Burt Reynolds. Make sure you check that out. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Boom. Money in the bank.